a new China deal and the impact for the US and the commodity market effects. Jerry Dell is ready to assess all of that and more right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we have started the week with that China deal with the US getting the tariffs down to 10% reciprocally. And so there's a lot of optimism because it could be a lot worse than that, but at the same time, many people in the markets think that still the corn and soybean exports from the US would still drop this year.
Yes. Definitely taken from the 140s and 120s down, like you said, 10% for the U.S., but for the Chinese side of the thing, the Trump administration's kept their side at 30% to there, which definitely is uh, ends up slowing down potential business uh, per se going that direction. That makes it expensive for the Chinese on those scenarios. Interesting, it happened to come over the weekend just before our May USDA reports, which turns out to be usually one of the bigger ones of the year because it sets the tone for the coming year. We're finishing up the 24-25 U.S. crop year, but USDA then sets the tone for what they anticipate things to do in the 25-26 year, which we're just getting the plantings in at this point for the major crops at this point, but we from there, but the markets actually some of the USDA numbers were tempered from what a lot of people anticipated here. I don't know if they took the idea that the Chinese and the U.S. had put together some type of reduced tariff war into their numbers, but to some extent, low prices do tend to end up finding ways to utilize the stuff in both corn and soybeans, and that's what they did. And instead of a 2 billion carryover stock for corn for this 25-26 year we're just entering, they had a 1.8 billion number, which is encouraging. It's still not down to the 1.4 that they adjusted this old crop number down because of 50 million increase in exports, but going the right direction nonetheless. And to some extent, they're still utilizing the 181 bushel yield. So if that happens to have issues, and I think there is a possibility of that being less than 181. Now, that's not going to happen until we get into August at the earliest. But anyway, that's definitely caught people off guard. Now, on the soybean side, they were even more aggressive with a carryover stock of 295 after they did take old crop down from 325, or excuse me, 375 down to 350 on the carryover stock. So both the corn and soybeans found some stability and they started to recover here into the latter part of the week, and that still had pretty good planning where they're going on, things of that nature in here in the U.S. But then we ended up running into kind of an unexpected type situation here. Uh, our weekly ethanol numbers look like they had their kind of final tie up on when, or excuse me, going through and had their final cleanup on stuff before they hit the big summertime demand levels in that and ethanol production in the U.S. They dropped down under 1 billion or 1 million average barrels a day, and that definitely shook up the ethanol market a little bit there, and the stocks even rose a little bit on those things going back and forth from there. So. Uh, the other biggie was the Kansas wheat tour was going on this last week. Uh, the first day came up with a 50 bushel average. That was moving from Manhattan up to northwest Kansas. Then from there, they circled around and came into Wichita. I was really surprised by their 53.3 bushel yield from the standpoint that traditionally those areas in the western, central, and southwest districts are usually very tough. The weather hasn't been that great out there, but the one thing that I guess they decided not to do was to try to make implications about what happens with the virus that they have that's called wheat streak leaf virus and that, which can definitely have a huge impact on their yields. But they decided not to put that in. They did the basic things, but that does suggest that that number that they came up with, which was higher than expected on the state level there. The USDA was at 50 bushels, and this tour came out at 53. So that didn't help the wheat market at the
But far,
middle of
not
the.
not far from there in Nebraska, there's a lot of weather concerns.
Oh, yes, exactly. Interestingly enough, the one thing that happens during this tour is that from people from other states, Nebraska was at the one uh, in the one in Colby, same thing from Colorado. Both of those states had some little mini tours that went through and made some judgments on the crop sizes, and both of them were 2 to 3 bushels less than the USDA. And then when we got to Wichita, the Oklahoma group also came in at I think they were 2 bushels lower than the USDA's term. And now they were just doing the northern part of the state, and that's where some of the dryness has been. But I really do feel like you say you put together that, but the problem is that the number is what the number is, and unfortunately, that didn't provide a lot of excitement in wheat, which has been thumping along at the kind of the bottom of the market here on wheat this year.
Yes, and since we mentioned the weather in South America, it's still hard to reach an agreement on how big the Brazilian uh, corn crop will be.
Yes, that one is particularly has a lot of people trying to figure out because of the fact that that particular crop is kind of dicey. You need to get it in soon enough to make sure you have things done before the dry season starts. To some extent, I'm not sure that we really haven't had very good rain in the northern areas, Mato Grosso, Goiás, the Northeast, Minas Gerais, since May has started here, and that is a tendency to have issues out there, and that. But uh, we did have some decent rains in April, and some similar situations going down in Argentina too, keeping the question mark on what kind of crop they're going to have on their corn and soybeans out there too, because planted. Rio Grande doesn't plant anything like that, and maybe a little bit in Paraná. So that's going to be an interesting situation on it right now. Still, there's optimism in South America that their corn crop's going to be well. Actually, the USDA actually moved their number from 126 up to 130 million metric tons. They didn't change the Brazilian bean crop at 168, but they did increase that one. We'll see if they're right now, at least, I think there's definitely question marks in South America if that crop is on corn is going to be uh, in that 125 to 130 zone, but that will be higher than last year when well, officially the number was 122, but I think a lot of people anticipated being less than that. We haven't seen the kind of corn shipped out of there, but they're all saying it's been used for either feeding or ethanol down there. So I guess we'll find out what the usage is corn in Brazil as we go forward.
Yes, and talking about going forward, what do you expect for next week?
Well, that's going to be a tricky one on this one, because of the fact that the end of this week we were moving along really kind of good for a recovery here in these beans, and then the Trump administration uh, kind of threw in a little wrench in the numbers here. There had been agreement between the U.S. Ethanol producers and the excuse me, and the petroleum industry to go ahead and uh, blend in about 5.25 billion pounds of ethanol, or excuse me, of bean oil into the diesel world and that. And then all of a sudden, and some of the numbers that came out on Thursday and it prompted a huge collapse in the soybeans and soybean oil market, that all the current EPA only proposed a 4.6 number, about a number about 600 million pounds less. That definitely spooked the crowd, and we had a whole bunch of liquidation hitting that market, and that really was a out of the blue situation. From there, uh, to some extent, whatever the number of the USDA, excuse me, the EPA proposes, and that is the bottom of the market. If it goes over that, which could easily happen, and that still can happen. But unfortunately, that definitely took the markets on a defensive at Thursday, and we kind of had a slight trying to recovery on Friday. But overall, everybody was just waiting to see what the weather does. We're going to have some very uh, interesting weather over the weekend here, with some places getting some very hefty windstorms and things like that. Even one happened here in Chicago, and that, but didn't really provide a lot of rain in our neck of the woods. From there, Missouri and Kentucky seemed to, and Southern Illinois seemed to be the ones that got the biggest impact of the tough weather over the weekend. From there, I'm anticipating this market to kind of keep struggling along here, holding the kind of setback numbers we've had, and continue to see what additional news we're going to get from various other countries around the world. I think the markets also kind of sent a message to the Trump administration. You got to keep telling us about your victories on who's going to be buying more stuff. We did get the UK in here last week, but nothing, excuse me, 2 weeks ago. And last week we didn't have anything particular here going on this week on those kinds of expanded export agreements. And I think that's going to be important to this thing going forward. And that, so in general, kind of, I'm still anticipating a chance for to make some soybean sales if we get closer to that. Well, back towards the highs there recently at 1080 to 1090 in there. Corn, it's a real difficult one where they've really beat this down on the assumption that the carryover stock was going to be, big and healthy and all that kind of stuff. It hasn't been at this point, but right now, there's not much we can point to as to what's going to hurt our U.S. yields from at least the 181. I kind of feel like that's still a way too optimistic number, but that doesn't make a lot of sense from there. One thing, as we mentioned earlier here, we did uh, the winter wheat tour actually had a number that was 3 bushels over the USDA's number that was issued earlier in the week. In the wheat side of things, I really feel like that even most people in the trade are not as optimistic about that yield that's currently there actually being available to the markets later this summer, particularly Kansas. That's a vulnerable state with all their issues out there on yield, and I kind of feel like that one's going to end up. I'm not sure it's going to be 43 like last year, but state yield, but I definitely don't think it's going to end up being 53, or probably I think it's going to be below 49, as we don't have the kind of yields actually getting in the bandit later because of this disease issue that's across the whole state of Kansas. So kind of a him and haw here, but I kind of feel like we kind of stumble along here and try to hold things together for maybe a little more strength later this month.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Take care, sir. Have a good day.